The Kim Kardashian of cartels. On September 14, 2015, 29-year-old Claudia Ochoa Felix was found dead in her bed in Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico. She had become famous on social media for posting photos with luxury cars, designer clothes, and assault rifle. Her Instagram showed a life of wealth and danger. Followers called her the Kim Kardashian of the Sinaloa cartel. Authorities believed she led a group of hitmen known as Los Antrax. On that September morning, family members entered her bedroom after she failed to wake up. They found her lifeless body lying peacefully under silk sheets. There were no visible signs of violence, no blood, no gunshot wounds. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, but she showed no pulse. At the hospital, doctors examined her body carefully. They found traces of substances in her system that suggested poisoning. Investigators later theorized she had been given a lethal dose of drugs, disguised as recreational narcotics. The cartel world whispered that her own organization had eliminated her for attracting too much attention with her social media presence. She was buried in a lavish ceremony attended by hundreds. Her death was never officially solved, and no arrests were ever made. La Catrina's last stand. On January 9, 2017, in Puebla, Mexico, federal police surrounded a safe house where 43-year-old Maria Guadalupe Lopez Esquivel was hiding. She went by the name La Catrina and commanded a cell of the Los Zetas cartel. Intelligence reports indicated she was responsible for dozens of kidnappings and executions in central Mexico. Officers had tracked her for months through intercepted phone calls and informant tips. That morning, they moved in with armored vehicles and automatic weapons. La Catrina and her bodyguards opened fire immediately. The gun battle lasted nearly 2 hours. Neighbors reported hearing hundreds of rounds exchanged. Eventually, the shooting stopped. When officers entered the building, they found La Catrina dead in an upstairs bedroom. She had been hit multiple times in the chest and abdomen. 3 of her bodyguards also lay dead. Authorities recovered grenades, assault rifles, and large amounts of cash. Federal prosecutors later confirmed she had ordered the murder of at least 27 people. Her body was taken to the morgue and identified through fingerprints. The Mexican government celebrated her death as a major victory against organized crime. La Flaca's execution. On March 23, 2012, in Monterrey, Mexico, the body of 24-year-old Jocelyn Alejandra Niño was discovered on a roadside at dawn. Known as La Flaca, she had risen quickly through the Gulf cartel ranks by organizing drug distribution networks across the northern states. Witnesses said she had attended a meeting with rival cartel members the night before to negotiate territory disputes. She never returned home. Her boyfriend reported her missing around midnight. Search teams found her body less than 6 hours later. She had been shot 11 times in the head and torso. Her hands were bound with zip ties behind her back. A cardboard sign lay across her chest with a message warning others not to interfere in cartel business. Investigators determined she had been executed by members of Los Zetas after negotiations collapsed. Her family held a private funeral, fearing retaliation if they made a public display. Local newspapers ran her story for several days, highlighting the increasing role of women in cartel leadership positions. Police never made arrests in connection with her murder. La Madrina's final raid. On June 7, 2014, Mexican Marines raided a compound in Jalisco where 51-year-old Maria Guadalupe Martinez was directing operations for the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Known as La Madrina, she oversaw methamphetamine production facilities and supervised street-level dealers across 3 states. Intelligence agencies had monitored her communications for 8 months. That evening, Marines approached the compound using night vision equipment. As they breached the front gate, guards opened fire with automatic weapons. La Madrina reportedly grabbed an AK-47 and fired from a second-floor window. The battle lasted 45 minutes. When the shooting ended, Marines found La Madrina dead in a hallway. She had been struck 7 times by rifle rounds. 2 Marines and 4 cartel members also died in the operation. Inside the compound, authorities discovered 300 kilograms of crystal meth, 17 firearms, and financial records linking La Madrina to dozens of criminal enterprises. The government held a press conference showcasing the seized materials. Her death barely slowed cartel operations, as her second-in-command immediately took control. La China's betrayal. On August 19, 2013, 32-year-old Melissa Margarita Calderon Ojeda was found dead in a drainage canal in Tijuana, Mexico. She had operated under the name La China and managed logistics for the Arellano Felix cartel. She arranged drug shipments across the U.S. border and collected payments from American distributors. Colleagues described her as ruthlessly efficient and deeply trusted by cartel leadership. But in July of that year, authorities seized a shipment worth $12 million at a border checkpoint. Cartel bosses suspected La China had tipped off police in exchange for a reduced sentence on pending charges. They ordered her execution. On the night of August 18th, two men picked her up from her apartment, claiming the cartel boss wanted to meet with her. Instead, they drove her to an abandoned industrial area. There, they shot her 4 times in the back of the head. Her body was dumped in the canal and discovered by maintenance workers the next morning. Police found her identification still in her pocket. An autopsy confirmed she died from close-range gunshot wounds. Investigators learned through informants that her own cartel had killed her for suspected betrayal. No charges were ever filed. The Nightclub Massacre. On February 11, 2016, 26-year-old Jennifer Hermosillo Pineda was shot dead inside a nightclub in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. She had managed cocaine distribution for the Juarez cartel in the city's western neighborhoods. Friends said she often frequented expensive clubs and enjoyed the nightlife scene, despite the obvious dangers. That Saturday night, she arrived at the club with 3 bodyguards and several female friends. They took a VIP table near the back. Around 1 in the morning, 4 masked gunmen entered through the main entrance. They walked directly to Jennifer's table and opened fire. Witnesses said the shooting lasted less than 30 seconds. Jennifer was hit 8 times in the chest and neck. 2 of her bodyguards and 1 friend also died in the attack. Panicked clubgoers stampeded toward the exits, causing additional injuries. Police arrived within minutes, but the gunmen had already fled. Security camera footage showed they escaped in 2 black SUVs. Investigators determined the attack was ordered by the Sinaloa cartel, which was attempting to take over Juarez distribution network. Jennifer's funeral drew hundreds of mourners, many connected to cartel activities. Her killers were never identified or caught. Anel's last party. On May 4, 2015, in Monterrey, Mexico, 28-year-old Anel Noriega was celebrating her birthday at an upscale bar. She worked as a plaza boss for the Gulf Cartel, controlling drug sales in several neighborhoods. Approximately 50 people attended her party, including other cartel members and their families. Music played loudly and drinks flowed freely. Around midnight, 3 vehicles pulled up outside. 8 armed men exited and stormed the entrance. They fired indiscriminately into the crowd. Anel tried to run toward the back exit but was shot 5 times in the back and legs. 13 other people were killed in the attack, including several innocent bystanders. The gunmen left as quickly as they arrived. Emergency services found a chaotic scene with bodies scattered across the floor. Anel was still alive when paramedics reached her, but she died in the ambulance before reaching the hospital. Authorities later determined Los Zetas had carried out the attack as revenge for a Gulf cartel operation that had killed 3 of their members the previous week. The bar was permanently closed after the incident. None of the shooters were ever prosecuted. Alma Rosa's ambush. On November 17, 2012, 40-year-old Alma Rosa Diaz Garcia was driving through Culiacan, Sinaloa, when her vehicle was ambushed by gunmen. She held a leadership position in the Sinaloa cartel's financial operations, managing money laundering networks that moved millions of dollars monthly. That afternoon, she left a meeting with cartel accountants and headed home. As her armored SUV approached an intersection, 2 trucks blocked her path from opposite directions. At least 6 gunmen emerged and fired armor-piercing rounds into her vehicle. Her driver attempted to reverse, but a 3rd truck blocked them from behind. The attack lasted approximately 3 minutes. When police arrived, they found Alma Rosa dead in the back seat. She had been struck 17 times. Her driver and 1 bodyguard also died. The armored glass had slowed but not stopped the specialized ammunition. Shell casings from AK-47 rifles littered the street. Witnesses reported seeing the attackers communicate through hand signals, suggesting military training. Investigators believed the Beltran Leyva cartel ordered the hit to disrupt Sinaloa's financial operations. Alma Rosa's funeral was attended by prominent cartel figures, though most wore masks to avoid identification. The case remains unsolved. La Gringa's prison execution. On July 23, 2018, 35-year-old Gladys Garcia, known as La Gringa, was stabbed to death inside a women's prison in Culiacan. She had been serving a 20-year sentence for her role in multiple cartel murders. Before her arrest, she commanded an assassination squad for the Sinaloa cartel. Prison officials said she continued directing criminal operations from behind bars using smuggled cell phones. On that July morning, during breakfast in the common area, 3 inmates approached her table. 1 distracted her while the other 2 produced sharpened metal shanks. They stabbed her repeatedly in the neck, chest, and abdomen. Guards responded within seconds, but La Gringa collapsed immediately. She was rushed to the prison medical facility but was pronounced dead within minutes. The 3 attackers surrendered without resistance. Investigators learned they had been paid by a rival cartel to eliminate La Gringa, who had testified against their members in exchange for a reduced sentence. Prison authorities launched an investigation into how the weapons entered the facility and how the payment was arranged. The 3 women received additional sentences for murder. La Gringa was buried in a private ceremony attended only by immediate family. Maria's gang war casualty. On October 9, 2019, 23-year-old Maria Jimenez Ortega was killed during a shootout between rival cartels in Guadalajara, Mexico. She operated a drug distribution cell for the Jalisco New Generation Cartel in the city's poorest neighborhoods. That afternoon, members of the Nueva Plaza cartel attempted to seize control of her territory. Approximately 20 gunmen arrived in 5 vehicles. Maria and her crew returned fire from a safe house. The gun battle raged for over an hour with hundreds of rounds exchanged. Nearby residents fled their homes or hid indoors. Maria fought from a rooftop position, firing an assault rifle until she was struck in the head by a sniper round. She died instantly. When police finally secured the area, they found 8 bodies total, including 4 civilians caught in the crossfire. Maria's body remained on the rooftop for several hours while investigators documented the scene. Ballistic evidence confirmed she had fired over 60 rounds during the battle. Her family claimed her body 2 days later and held a funeral despite fears of retaliation. Mexican authorities called the incident one of the deadliest single encounters in Guadalajara's ongoing cartel war. No arrests were made. Juliana's torture death. On December 2, 2020, the tortured body of 31-year-old Juliana Escobar was discovered in a rural area outside Monterrey, Mexico. She had managed human trafficking operations for the Gulf Cartel, overseeing the movement of migrants through northern Mexico. In November, she allegedly kept profits from a trafficking operation instead of delivering them to cartel leadership. Bosses ordered her capture. On November 30th, armed men kidnapped her from a shopping mall parking lot in broad daylight. Witnesses reported seeing her forced into a van. Her family received no ransom demands. 2 days later, a farmer found her body in a field. She had been severely beaten and showed signs of prolonged torture. Her hands and feet were bound. Cause of death was determined to be multiple stab wounds to the chest. A message carved into her skin warned others against stealing from the cartel. State police documented the crime scene and collected evidence, but the investigation yielded no suspects. Juliana's murder was recorded as one of over 35,000 homicides in Mexico that year. Her family held a small funeral and then fled the region, fearing they might be targeted next. La Emperatrice's military operation. On April 16, 2021, Mexican army soldiers killed 27-year-old Melissa Calderon, known as La Emperatriz, during a raid in Guerrero State. She commanded an enforcement wing of La Familia Michoacana cartel, responsible for protecting poppy fields and methamphetamine labs. Military intelligence tracked her to a mountain compound after months of surveillance. Soldiers approached at dawn using helicopters for rapid deployment. La Emperatriz and approximately 15 cartel soldiers opened fire immediately. The battle lasted nearly 2 hours with explosions from grenades echoing through the mountains. A military helicopter provided air support, firing on cartel positions. When fighting ceased, soldiers found La Emperatriz dead in a bunker beneath the main building. She had been killed by shrapnel from a grenade explosion. 7 cartel members and 2 soldiers also died in the operation. Inside the compound, authorities discovered weapons caches, cocaine processing equipment, and evidence of extortion scheme. The military displayed her body to media, confirming her identity. Government officials praised the operation as a significant blow to the cartel's leadership structure. La Emperatriz was buried in her hometown with minimal ceremony. Within weeks, another commander had assumed her position. Inz Oua's police confrontation. On August 29, 2021, 39-year-old Inz Oua Cervantes was killed during a police operation in Jalisco, Mexico. She was the sister of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho, leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Inez managed financial operations and supervised money laundering networks across multiple states. Federal police received intelligence placing her at a ranch outside Guadalajara. Officers surrounded the property at dawn with over 50 agents participating. As police announced their presence, gunfire erupted from inside the ranch house. Inez and several bodyguards engaged officers for approximately 30 minutes. An armored police vehicle breached the front gate, allowing tactical units to advance. Inez was struck multiple times during the exchange and fell in the courtyard. Officers secured the area and called medical personnel, but she was pronounced dead at the scene. 3 bodyguards and 1 police officer also died in the operation. Authorities recovered financial documents linking Inez to shell companies used for laundering drug proceeds. Her death was considered a personal blow to El Mencho, though the cartel continued its expansion. The government released photos of seized materials but withheld images of her body. She was buried quickly in a private ceremony with heavy security to prevent cartel retaliation against authorities. Her brother reportedly ordered attacks on police stations in response, resulting in additional casualties over the following weeks. Ruth's crossfire tragedy. On January 11, 2022, 25-year-old Ruth Moreno died in a shootout between the Sinaloa cartel and Mexican federal forces in Badiraguato, Sinaloa. She served as a communications coordinator, managing encrypted radio networks that kept cartel members connected across vast territories. That morning, federal police raided a suspected cartel safe house where Ruth was working. As officers approached, cartel guards opened fire from multiple positions. Ruth was in a ground floor room coordinating responses when a stray bullet entered through a window. She was struck in the chest and collapsed immediately. The firefight continued for another 20 minutes before cartel forces retreated. When police entered the building, they found Ruth barely conscious and bleeding heavily. Paramedics worked to stabilize her, but she died during transport to the hospital. Authorities later confirmed she had no weapon and appeared to have been attempting to hide when shot. Her death highlighted the dangers faced even by cartel members in non-combat roles. Federal prosecutors determined the bullet came from a police rifle, though the shooting was ruled accidental given the chaotic circumstances. Ruth's family received her body 3 days later and held a funeral attended by over 200 people. Local residents described her as someone who had few options for legitimate employment in a region dominated by cartel activity. The case received brief media attention before being overshadowed by subsequent cartel violence. No disciplinary action was taken against the officers involved. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for similar ones and feel free to drop suggestions for the next video in the comments.